All right, everybody, welcome to the Midday Meetup. Man, Thursday already, day 4. We're already halfway through this week. It's been crazy. Welcome, everyone. I'm Jake Hall, the Manufacturing Millennial. With me is Chris Lukey, from host of Manufacturing Happy Hour, and of course, Sully from Millennial Resource Group. Now, his name's not actually Sully. We just call him Sully. It's Michael Sullivan, but, you know, we're all friends here, so we can call him Sully as well. So, yeah, we are here for the Midday Meetup. It's part of Automate Forward. It's a virtual conference and show that's been going on all week, put on by the Association for Advancing Automation. We have 80 keynote speakers, 250 virtual booths. And, you know, Chris, you know what the best part of it all is?
What's that, Jake?
It's completely free.
Yes.
So what you can do is, if you haven't been a part of this yet, this really, it's been phenomenal speakers all day long, all week long, really, just, you know, talking about automation, robotics, the autonomous mobile industry, deep learning, vision, 2D, 3D, you know, and Sully, you were on actually Monday on the afternoon, you were on a panel building an Industry 4.0 workforce for the future. So, yep, you know, right, you're on again. How's that feel? You know, 2 for 2 this week.
Yeah, I'm just trying to be like you guys. You know, that's just my motivation, right?
Not much to strive for there, but hey,
you are experienced, Sully. We'll talk about this later. You've jumped on multiple manufacturing happy hours before. You're keynoting. We're aspiring to be you. The respect is shared.
Yeah, you sound like my buddy Carson Weaver from Elementary Robotics with that kind of praise. You know, he told me the other day, we were chatting. He's like, I want to be you when I grow up. So that's a huge compliment coming from somebody like that.
Well, being you when you grow up, you know, so tell us a little bit about, you know, Chris and I know you. We've been on conversations, you know, dozens of times now on LinkedIn and chats and webinars and face-to-faces and one-on-one. Well, not face-to-faces yet, but virtual faces-to-face. You know, what do you do?
Yeah, no, great question. Again, thanks for having me on. So I am a executive recruiter for Millennial Resource Group. And for those that aren't familiar, Millennial Resource Group is a recruiting firm, 50 years old, one of the original, you know, recruiting firms. But we focus in on, you know, basically A3, right? So if you look at, you know, the original associations, motion control and motor, robotic industries, and then automated imaging, you know, the machine vision, those are the types of companies that we partner with. So they come to us when they need, you know, sales folks, engineers, you know, management, you know, up to the C-suite. That's essentially what we do. And then over the last 5 years, I've been leading our business development and recruiting efforts primarily in the A3 world, we'll say. So that's the sandbox that I support throughout North America.
Great. So when we look at, you know, the keynote that happened on Monday, building Industry 4.0 workforce for the future, you know, for those of you who were not able to attend it or watch that event, a couple things. One is you can go back, register right now, and view it on demand. And then also throughout the next few weeks, there's going to be more resources with all these videos posted. So if you missed the keynote, you can go back and watch it. But, you know, Sully, for those that didn't view that keynote, what the heck is happening in terms of workforce in the industry right now?
Sure. Well, I'll kind of echo, you know, my sentiments from Monday, and I'll, you know, kind of sprinkle into what some of the other panelists were mentioning. But on the engineering side, you know, we're definitely seeing a shift and a need for folks. If you're in college or if you're thinking about getting into engineering, you know, we used to have, you know, I'm an electrical engineer, I'm a mechanical engineer, right? You know, now we're seeing much more of a need and an emphasis placed on somebody with a mechatronics background. So that's one thing that I'm seeing more lately. And then just the languages, the Python, C, C++, Java, you know, being able to program a robot, a PLC, an HMI, being able to, and this is something too that it's more of a soft skill for an engineer, but, you know, being able to work in customer facing situations a lot more, that and being comfortable with that. So having good communication skills, being able to work as part of a team, you know, on just much more complex projects than what we've seen before. So those are definitely some things I'm seeing. On the sales side, we're definitely seeing a need for folks that can provide a complete solution, right? So perhaps, similar, Jake and Chris, to like what you guys were doing or what you are doing now, in terms of bundling, technologies, that is definitely a need, as opposed to like when I first came on, a few years ago, it was, I need somebody to go out and sell my servo motor. I mean, that's still around, but I'm definitely seeing more project-based, sales needs right now, guys that can go out and just sell a full system.
Absolutely. So, with that being said, when we look at resumes or, when companies are reaching out to you saying, hey, we need a guy with these specific skills, are you still seeing the need for a 4-year engineering degree as the status quo to get into automation, to program a robot, to program a PLC? Or are we in a current state right now where that quote unquote thing on your resume is no longer needed or as high as demand as you can walk away with an associate's or a person with a mechatronics degree or went to a college and got a certification and FANUC robot programming and understands how to program Allen Bradley or Siemens or other PLC manufacturers out there? Is that 4-year degree still a gatekeeper for these companies?
In some ways, yes, but I am definitely seeing, and I just had a conversation this morning with an existing client. We've done some work for him in the past. He called. He's like, I need an application engineer, and we're talking. I'm just kind of getting the nice to haves, the must haves, and he flat out said, he was like, if they have an associate's degree, if it's from like a 2-year technical school, he's like, I'm fine with that. So we are starting to see that more. I think that, these positions are, some of them are very hard to fill. And I think, some companies are starting to wake up and realize that, okay, if I have the 2-year degree, or even if I just have, the knowledge, if I can demonstrate, that I know what I'm doing, that piece of paper, really isn't, a hindrance like it used to be,
So, Sully, it's exciting that you're jumping on here. We were chatting about this before we went live, but it's been about a year since you have been on 2 episodes of Manufacturing Happy Hour. We actually did an A3 recap last year right after the event, and I'm going to ask you about that in a second. And then you were on our very first Manufacturing Happy Hour roundtable virtual happy hour, like a few days after lockdown, when jumping on a Zoom call with people across the country and a beer was a novel thing. I want to reference some of the things that you said back then and see how they played out, because it's a year later. We've been in the pandemic for a year. And when we first talked after A3 last year, you had some pretty positive outlooks on the year ahead, obviously not knowing what was going to come up. But, how did that play out? We had talked about how, perceptions around automation and robotics were changing, seeing how that's a job creator. But you also talked about how it's like, hey, it looks like hiring is going to continue. It looks like we're on the upswing. I'd love to hear your thoughts 1 year later with, when we didn't realize what was going to happen.
Right. Yeah. We didn't have that crystal ball. Right. No, good question. And I would say that outside of Q2 last year, we really didn't see a noticeable dip. I think and I had this conversation with several people, over the year. But I think if COVID taught us anything, if there's a manufacturer or an end user who was, for whatever reason, they were resistant, to automate, or they were defensive about it, I think COVID, in a sense, is really kind of forcing their hand right now. Because I remember during Robotics Week in September last year, I think it was Mike Chico from FANUC. They were on a CEO roundtable, and I think Mike said something along the lines of, they're forecasting just a surge in new projects. And he was telling all their integrators, like, you guys better get ready, for this, because it's the resurgence. It's going to come fast and it's going to come hard. And we definitely, are seeing that. I mean, 2019 for Miller Resource Group was our record year. We didn't quite, get to that point in 2020, but it was still a pretty good year. We were, we just carried in a ton of momentum into like Q3 and Q4 especially, and that's just carried into this year. So hiring, I haven't seen anything like this in 5 years that I've been supporting the industry. I mean, it's just crazy right now. I have clients that are like, yeah, we have a backlog of projects for the next calendar year. You know, it's crazy right now. You know, and you guys are probably seeing the same thing, right?
Yeah, 100%. It's the industry right now in terms of, I would say halfway, and I know, Chris, you have a follow-up question with that, but real quickly, I know about halfway through COVID, summer, fall of last year, like, I don't know what this is going to do for the automation industry. And then when businesses and manufacturers really saw, well, there's still a big consumer demand out there for a lot of products. Everyone's still buying things. No one's going anywhere.
Right.
No one's doing all the services. Right. Mm-hmm. So what are people doing? They're spending their money on product and consumer goods, which is produced by manufacturing, So people aren't spending hundreds and thousands of dollars on an airplane ticket and a hotel room, which was a service. They're spending it on product. Whereas that product is being made in manufacturing facilities, which is then putting a higher demand on manufacturers. So, I mean, just a quick example. So we work with a manufacturer at Fine Zelstra where they make a lot of consumer goods. And we had, I think, 7 retrofits planned for this upcoming year on, upgrading all their PLCs and HMIs and sensors and traceability. And that got pushed back to summer of 2022 just because of production demand. They can't find downtime on their floor. And that's just the demand that's out there. And Chris, I'm going to bounce it back over to you.
Yeah, I mean, the things we like you said, Jake, I think that was a great point on a shift from purchasing services to purchasing consumer goods. Because I think we were talking about that right out of the gate. We're like, paper is going off the chain right now because of the toilet paper demand right at the start. There was repurposing on how people were selling their goods. Grocery stores, selling more food through grocery stores rather than through restaurants, selling beer through cans rather than through kegs. There was a lot of repurposing that played directly into the automation space right now. So just to kind of put a bow around this conversation, it's maybe more of a statement than a question.
And I'm not going to judge anyone, but if you want to raise your hand in chat for those of you who still have toilet paper from purchasing it in February of 2020, I would love just, honesty here of how long you've been holding on to toilet paper.
I'll admit I was not in that group of people because I was the group that showed up after it had all been purchased. So it was like a treasure hunt from local convenience stores to Trader Joe's to try to find that stuff. But yeah, hit us up over in the comments. We're loving what we're seeing in the comment section right now. It's basically the Sully fan club over here today.
I know, right, man? We pulled a guy on so far, There's more. We had Mike Chico on, President and CEO of Fanuc. We had Sebastian on from Staubli earlier. We had Aaron Pratt from FedEx. But, man, there's been more like fan people for Sully here than the rest of the week combined. So, man, I don't know what you're doing out there, Sully, but, man, it must be your looks or your services or something.
It ain't the looks, brother. I'll tell you that much. So I got a face for radio. You're lucky I hopped on here.
Man, you do this stuff all the time. You are a man about town in this industry. And I'm gonna go on another tangent real quick. But how about that keynote panel this morning? Like that was like the all-stars of robotics right there. And quite frankly, I can't remember what the title was, but it was basically like party of all the leaders in the robotic space hanging out and having a great time.
It was the bulls of the mid 90s. Like I said, it wasn't even fair,
it was fun, right? Because we had that pregame show, I think, Chris, Wednesday or Thursday of last week, we had Joe on from Calvary and Milton on from Shunk. And it was a fun show. Just listening to those conversations and the way they're engaging. It's just like, that's what brought back the whole idea of you're sitting around a bar drinking, after you just did it, you pounded out a 12-hour a day at a show in the McCormick Center. And now you're just sitting around, kicking the cans. Like that's just the relationships that I missed. Listening to those guys, it was super fun and enjoyable.
Yep. And shout out to Dave Robers, who I'm seeing over there in the comments. He was on that panel this morning from Denso. So cool to see some of the folks there continuing the conversation with us. So I'm going to go back to what we originally started with. I know we've been having fun and going off track a little bit, but so Sully, what I'm hearing is little dip in Q2, but really, is it safe to say that what the pandemic did is it accelerated everything that we've been talking about in manufacturing and got people doing projects, needing the people to do those projects. And as a result, you're just seeing things continue to grow and grow. Is that safe to say, or how would you phrase it?
No, I think that's spot on, and I'm probably paraphrasing, but I remember one of the I don't remember it was Alan or Brian Bolio from ITR Economics. I know we're all familiar with those guys, but I remember last year they were projecting like a V type of a V recovery, and I mean we're definitely seeing that in automation. Like I said, Q4 was huge for us. Q1 has just been ridiculous. I mean, we track, if you look at just all of our key metrics, and we're always kind of a microcosm of the industry in a sense on our end. So if you look at year over year metrics, it's like 130% over, 110% over. I mean, it's just, we're talking to more people, both on the client and the candidate side. There's more needs that we're working to fill right now. And it's not just, sales and business development, it's engineering. There's new positions that are being created. I mean, that's the other thing too, that I've never really seen something like this where, we're seeing new positions that are created because of the clients, trying to meet the demand, right? And they're like, we don't have the talent in-house. We can't set up a table at Purdue, and wait for these folks to graduate. We need them now, to work on these projects. So it's just crazy right now. Like I said, we're having to hire ourselves to bring in more recruiters so that we can continue to bring value, to our clients. So it's definitely, it's a surge right now. It's the best word that I can say.
Awesome.
Absolutely.
Awesome and uplifting. Jake, back over to you.
Yeah, so just a quick recap why we're here. So we are at the Midday Meetup, really for the Automate Forward event. So right now it's a virtual event that's been happening all week, 80 keynote speakers, 250 virtual booths from manufacturers and machine builders and systems integrators from really across the U.S. and really over the world, all coming together to just have some awesome panels, have some awesome discussions, and really it's all three. So the link below, we'll go ahead, and I think Dana's going to drop it in just a second. Really, you can still go on, register for free, and just really be a part of the event. And any of the awesome keynotes that you missed already, you can go back, watch on demand, just click that link, and you can start from the beginning. But really, we're all glad you're here. It's been some great conversations so far. And if you guys have questions or comments in chat that you want to bring forward, if you have questions for myself or Chris or the awesome Sully a part of it, just really some awesome conversations that we've been having so far. I'll highlight a couple in chat. Yep. So here is the registration link. You can click on this and go ahead and register. Steve had a great point as well. Global supply trends are continuing. Manufacture being exported from low-cost countries back to North America. And there was a great conversation on that. I think it was Tuesday's panel talking about how come I'm not receiving results? How come I'm not receiving results? Well, there's a couple of things that are happening, right? Reshoring and resourcing isn't something that's happening overnight. It's a process that we're continuing to make for the next 5 to 10 years. But also, I think one of the big things that we're seeing in the industry is companies that were looking at moving product overseas and manufacturing processes overseas. Now, when COVID hit, their competitors and part of their own, resource sourcing group, they said, wait a second. How can I invest in my suppliers with an automation and resource and data analytics and getting information back to stay competitive locally? And not just necessarily here in America, but I think it was, Chris, you might remember, was it Joe that mentioned about the whole entire North America trade between manufacturing that's also happening in Canada and also in Mexico, right? There was the A3 Mexico group that's now part of all under the A3 organization and umbrella. Quick shout out to that new website coming out, automate.org. That'll be launched later this month. But really just some awesome questions that we've had this week talking about reshoring and resourcing. Here's another one from Alan. We've seen a massive resurgence of manufacturing needing servos repaired due to the high demand, low supply of new servos. And Alan, you probably know more than I do. A lot of those servos being manufactured some of them are probably still on boats, in the harbor waiting to be offloaded. There's crazy photos of the San Francisco Bay and the LA ports of just product, container ships just waiting to still be unloaded. And here's
stuck in the Suez Canal, right? You guys saw that picture?
I saw that one. Yeah.
Absolutely crazy. But information exhibit booths open 24 hours per day, although booth and staff leaves at 5 p.m. So you can still see the information if you're a late night owl like I am, to still see some cool content.
I've got another question actually that popped into mind towards the end of Sully, one of your latest answers. What are the new jobs that you've seen pop up in the past year? What are these new unique roles that maybe were spurred by the pandemic?
Sure. No, good question. I don't know. Like from a title standpoint, I mean, the titles are still, the same, whether it's business development manager, regional sales manager, application engineer, but there's just, I mean, that we have clients calling in now, or that we'll be exploring opportunities of partnering with, and they're not needing just, an apps engineer or, a solitary salesperson. They're needing 2, 3, 4, 5 at a time. So the volume of projects right now, the volume of projects we're working on is up, but then also at the same time, it's multiple positions. I've never really had that, before over the last 5 years. So it's definitely been an encouraging sign. But in terms of like the titles, like I said, it's still the ones that we're all familiar with, but they're needing more and more to better, serve their customers and meet the demand right now that we're all seeing. So.
Absolutely. No, that's a great point. So here's a couple of other questions. Here's one from Grace. Have folks here looked into mobile training solutions once new hires are made? It's tough to job shadow and job pair with COVID. One of the big things, I saw a recent case study, it was actually by Rolls-Royce, on how they're using virtual reality glasses with instructors and maintenance people, where they can load up a virtual world of a Rolls-Royce engine and do virtual training with the instructors and multiple students all wearing VR glasses on how to repair engines. And that's just one of those things when we talk about Industry 4.0 solutions. No longer do you necessarily need to be on site to quote unquote get your hands on that information. With new technologies, I'll do a quick shout out just because I'm really looking forward to this event. So there's an event happening at 1:30 today, Automation Startup and Showcase. And one of the companies there, I'm going to give a quick shout out, is Shadow Robotics and Haptics. And those are the ones where they're actually providing haptic feedback on your hands and fingertips to grab stuff. There's like a virtual, a big trending video that was out there. Chris, you might remember like 6 months ago of Jeff Bezos with 2 universal robots going in and manipulating something with haptic feedback. And I think that's one of those cool things of how technology can be supplying training on a remote scale.
No, that's cool. Chris, and I remember this maybe from one of our happy hour sessions we did last year, didn't Rockwell or one of your partners, didn't they offer like some type of free, software or something similar like what Jake was talking about, for a while, where I don't remember if it was the glass. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yep. Yeah. Vuforia Chalk, like,
yes.
Kind of basically like, what people would typically do, take pictures of things, send a text and things like that. It was basically one that was designed for automation where you could, let's say you were troubleshooting a pump or you were troubleshooting a panel. You could go up to that with your iPhone and like take essentially a dynamic picture of it where you could circle different things, add chat notes and things like that. You could move around and you could go back and the circle would still be there. So it was really easy to kind of follow along and troubleshoot remotely, and you'd get like a record of that conversation when it was done. So you'd almost have like this ad hoc SOP that was created from it. That was a PTC, Vuforia Talk, one of the Rockwell partners. It's funny that I still use we all the time, even though I technically left there 6 months ago. It's like I'm still part of the family, but I suppose it's my fault for wearing like the old school Alan Bradley t-shirt this morning. It's still one of my staple outfits. But no, you're right. It was cool to see a lot of manufacturers just step up and do things to try to help people out. No strings attached right out of the gate when that was going down.
And I think too, one of the other things that, I mean, we're probably not going to see it at least for another year or so, but I'm just wondering about all of we're talking about new jobs. I'm wondering like what new companies are going to be created as a result of what we experienced last year. Cause we were talking with, a lot of engineers who were at home for a while and things maybe were a little slow and they had time to maybe think about, that idea they had back in college. Right. And maybe bringing that, to the forefront and going out on their own. So, I'm curious to see what new technologies, what new companies are going to be created as a result of last year. People just really having time to ponder.
Yeah, those, I assume they're in stealth mode right now. Like they probably started, 6-9 months ago, something like that. And some of these, it's just going to be like, maybe it's a year, 6 months, whatever it is before we start hearing more about them popping up. But I wouldn't be surprised if those origin stories start to date back to like March 2020.
Exactly.
I really think, the 2020s are really going to be just the incredible year of adaptation for automation, just with how COVID kicked things off in the beginning, how us as a buying culture switched from in-store to e-commerce, driving increased in warehouses and yesterday when we were talking with Aaron, talking about, distribution and sorting centers, just, a million parcels a day moving through one single facility. And the fact that, how that's being handled. Last year, there was $8 billion in venture capital invested in autonomous mobile robots. Just crazy, absurd numbers. So we're actually getting close to the top of to the top of the hour, to 1 o'clock, because I know there's another
flying today.
1 o'clock today, and that's going to be, Pragmatic Robotics, drive real ROI and simplify automation with Stephen Hansen from Freedom Robotics. So we're going to wrap this up. So Sully, I'm going to do one more quick question for you from the audience, and that's from Alan. Question for Sully. Have you seen an increase in new hires for mechatronics servo that deal with in the repair and service side of the industry?
Good question. I don't want to shoot from the hip on that. I personally haven't dealt a lot with the repair and the service side. Mostly it's it's on the engineering and the sales side. I'd be happy to talk with him offline though, if you can give me a little bit more context. So if Alan wants to connect with me after, and we can chat more, I'd probably have some questions for him so that I can better answer it. So
Sully, how do they reach you?
There's a couple of ways. Obviously LinkedIn. I'm on here literally sun up to sundown, as most of us are. So you can always connect with me on LinkedIn. Email address, msullivan@millerresource.com. And then obviously I have all my contact information in terms of my phone number on my LinkedIn profile. So that's normally where I would steer folks to.
Fantastic. Well, Chris, any closing remarks before we wrap up this midday meetup?
No, Sully, I'm sure I'll see you back here for one of these conversations in 2022 as well. This seems to be our annual thing right here at the start of the year now. So I'm glad this has become a tradition. Thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me, boys. Appreciate it.
Well, once again, a lot of fun stuff still happening this afternoon, 1 o'clock, Pragmatic Robotics with Stephen Hansen. We have Automation Startup Solutions. We're just some great companies that we're talking about with, we're talking about companies in stealth mode, moving out of it, what's happening with the new industry. Starting at 1:30, the Automation Startup Showcase. So check that out. And then another great one, 3 o'clock. I'm really excited about this one. New use cases for collaborative robotic applications with just a powerhouse of a team on there as well. And then, of course, finally, 4:30 p.m., join Chris and I on Clubhouse with your iPhone. If you don't have the app or you don't have an invite yet, send us a message. We'll go ahead and really be a part of the conversation. If you guys haven't been on the Clubhouse yet, it's going to be a lot of fun. You can just have great voice conversations. But until then, we'll see you on Clubhouse tonight, or we'll see you for the final midday meetup tomorrow with special guest Alex from A3 will be joining us and a few others. So a great way to wrap up the week. But until then, guys, we'll catch you tomorrow. See ya.
See you later.
See you guys.